there is 2 points. If you like just check these points, you will have no doubts about this. The first one is to go to Western Sahara and talk with people, is to go to refugee camps in Algeria and try to find Sahrawi people and talk with them. You will find the families that escaped from Western Sahara. You can go even to the liberated part of Western Sahara and see the wall that divides Western Sahara, and it was built by Morocco and Israel. That is the first point, that to go and see the reality. The second point is to go to the international law. It's like we have all the states, it's like United States, we have European Union, we have all the countries in the world talking about something called the international law. So what international law say about this? What United Nations say about this case? They say that Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa. So I think there is no doubt about this. But unfortunately, yeah, as I said, Morocco have the right friends and they give voice when it's like some economic interest for them, and they silence people where it's not very interesting. But for me, I live in Spain, and for me, it's like very frustrating to see every year on the television how they talk about the Berlin Wall as something in the past, and we will never see something like the Berlin Wall. And we have in Western Sahara the longest wall in the world. It was built by Morocco, is dividing families in Western Sahara, a wall of 2,700 kilometers with more than 10 millions of miles. It's like something crazy.
Welcome, Taleb. Thank you for joining me today for this interview with you, where we will be talking about your country, Western Sahara. So thank you so much for being here today. Yeah, my first question, I guess, is about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you live in Spain. You are originally from Western Sahara. That's your original country. Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself,
Well,
how you ended up in Spain. Yeah, what is your story?
All right. Thank you very much for having me here. For me, it's a pleasure to be with you, Mehdi, today. Well, at the beginning, I would like to say that there is a direct relationship between Sahara people and Spanish people, because Western Sahara was like a Spanish colony more than 100 years, and we feel Spanish people very close to us. So I think that it's not very strange that many Sahrawis end up in Spain. So maybe that's why I'm here in Spain as well. My name is Taleb Alisalem. I'm from Western Sahara, known as the last colony in Africa, currently occupied by Morocco. So because of that conflict, I was born in the Sahrawi refugee camps in Algeria, where my family arrived in the 1975. They were escaping from the illegal military occupation of Morocco to our country, to Western Sahara. So yeah, I was born in the refugee camps, and yeah, many people ask me if it's something traumatic to be born in a refugee camps, but in my case wasn't like that. In my case, I remember that I was a really happy child in the refugee camps, because I remember that when you are a child in a refugee camps in the end of 90s, start beginning of the 2000s, we haven't internet, we haven't electricity, we haven't potable water. It was like a very complicated situation, but we haven't also anything to compare with. So when you are a refugee child, you just accept life like that and you try to be happy. So yeah, I remember that I was very happy. It wasn't easy, but it was very happy life. So yeah, when I was about I think 9 or 10 years old, I had the opportunity to come to Spain with a charity program called Vacaciones en Paz, which means vacations on peace. The program was like just bringing kids, Sahrawi children from the refugee camps to spend summer in foster care with the Spanish families. So at the beginning, I was living here in Spain. I think when I was, as I told you, 9 or 10 years, I was living the first years with the Spanish family in foster care. And then I moved to live with my big sister that gets to come from the refugee camps to live in Spain. So yeah, from there, I start to live in Spain. I study here in Spain, but I always travel. I try to travel every year or every 2 years to the refugee camps to visit my family, to see my friends. And also I dedicate now all my time to do activism, to work against occupation, against colonialism, but especially to let people know about what's happening in my country, what is happening in Western Sahara. So yeah, I think maybe that's why I'm with you here today. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here, and thank you again for taking the time. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I'm from Algeria, and like I told you, yeah, I also at some point went to France. So we the colonized always one way or another end up
Yeah.
in our colonizers territory. Go there for with peaceful intentions, of course, unlike when it came to our country to destroy it. But yeah, the fact that you stayed with foster families,
but I think that we end up always in the colonization and the colonization powers, because in my case, especially because of a bad decolonization, Spain still the decolonization power of Western Sahara, so there was no decolonization. So that's why Sahrawi people are in refugee camps, or are in Spain, or are in Mauritania, or in different parts of the world, because Spain didn't decolonize the territory of Western Sahara.
Yeah, but even if the colonization, the military colonization ends, it doesn't mean colonization ends. This is a very important aspect.
There is another kinds of colonization.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why so many Algerians. Algeria has been independent since 1962. Are still finding refuge in France, which is like ironic at the end of the day. But yeah, we can talk about that later maybe. So can you tell us a little bit, because I think so many people are not familiar with the history of Western Sahara. Can you tell us like the history, the traditions, the culture of Western Sahara?
Well, Western Sahara people have lived along the years in the territory in the north of Africa known as Western Sahara. We were living as a nomadic people, just moving in the territory, as I said, of the territory of Western Sahara before the Spanish, of course, the Spanish colonization. We had no state, because there were no states in Africa as the classic states that we know today, but there was a tribal organization of what means an agreement between the different Sahrawi tribes that was living in the territory of Western Sahara. It was kind of a political and military agreement between the different Sahrawi tribes, as I said, and they was just living in the territory of Western Sahara, but they was also protecting the territory of Western Sahara from any foreign attack, because the Sahrawis has a very different way of life. We have even, I think, a different way to understand religion, Islamic religion, very different from Mauritania, or from Morocco, or from Algeria. We had a very special philosophy of life. I think that some South American writer has called it as the hippies of the desert, because our way of life was like kind of very different life. So the Sahrawi people was always trying to keep that kind of life and that philosophy of life that we have in Western Sahara. It's like safe. So that why was that agreement, political and military agreement, to protect the territory of Western Sahara. And after that, as I think people knows, in the famous Berlin conference in 1884, where the principal European powers has decided to start colonization in Africa. In that conference, Spain declares that Western Sahara will be the Spanish territory. It's a Spanish colony in Africa. So yeah, Spain starts to make the first contact with the Sahrawi tribes, and they get to establish it in the territory years after, not at the beginning, because at the beginning it was just some kind of contact with Sahrawi people. And then they start to establish it in the territory, in the end of, I think, 1890 or something like that, Along the years, there were Pacific coexistence between the Sahrawi people and the Spanish colonization. We have to say here that Spain was, at the beginning, very respectful with the way of life and culture of the Sahrawi people. I think that problem starts in the end of 60s, when all the countries, all our neighbors, Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania, get the independence from the colonialism. And also in the end of 60s, almost all the countries in Africa was like independent from the colonialism. So Sahrawi people start to claim that they also want to be an independent state, and there is no time for colonialism in Africa. And Western Sahara people was like kind of awake and even ready to be an independent state. And Spanish government at that moment has promised to the Sahara people that they will give the Sahara people the independence. But I think that when we talk about Western Sahara, we are talking about a very rich country, a very rich territory with petrol, with oil, with a sea rich in fish, with a ground rich in phosphate. So because of that, Morocco started to claim Western Sahara in the beginning of 70s. Morocco started to claim Western Sahara as part of Morocco. Also, Mauritania from the south started to claim Western Sahara as part of Mauritania. Also, Spain was doing all the best to keep Western Sahara as a Spanish territory. And at that time, also in the beginning of 70s, the Sahrawi people declared the Constitution of Polisario Front, who is the Sahrawi liberation movement, who started to claim independence from Spain. So it was a very, I think, difficult situation, with Morocco claiming Western Sahara, with Mauritania claiming Western Sahara, with Spain saying no, Western Sahara is a Spanish territory. And we had also Sahrawi people saying that they want to be an independent state and no time is not time for colonialism. And they also were saying that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco or part of Mauritania. So yeah, it was a very complicated situation with an easy resolution, because United Nations was like asking Spain from the end of 60s that they should give the Sahrawi people the right of self-determination, and they should start the colonization of Western Sahara. Also, the United Nations recognized that Western Sahara should be an independent state. They recognized that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco or part of Mauritania or even part of Spain. They recognized that Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa and Spain should do the colonization. And yeah, that was the situation at the end of 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation because you had this colonial power, which was Spain, at the moment where there was this wave of decolonizations, which came at a high price. I know we in Algeria, we paid a very high price to have friends leave Algeria, so these colonial powers left Africa, at least militarily. But the problem in Western Sahara, Spain didn't want to leave, and it seems to me Morocco took advantage of this wave of decolonizations to claim Western Sahara, because the Moroccan elites, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Moroccan elites apparently they have this goal, or this vision for like the greater Moroccan kingdom, which would include not only Western Sahara but also Mauritania and parts of Algeria. So they thought, it's our opportunity to establish this greater Morocco. And then what seems to have happened, but correct me again if I'm wrong, Taleb, it seems that Morocco and Spain have come to some sort of agreement that Spain will keep the administration of Western Sahara, like as an administrative colonial power, while Morocco will actually be the occupying power of Western Sahara. Is this more or less correct, or is it different?
Yeah, well, the agreement was not only with Morocco, it was also with Mauritania. As I said before, we were in a very complicated situation where Mauritania was claiming Western Sahara as part of Mauritania, and Morocco was claiming Western Sahara as part of Morocco, not only because they want to start to build the big Morocco, as they said, that claims not only Western Sahara, but also claims parts of Algeria, Mauritania, even parts of Mali or Senegal, or parts of Spain, but also because Western Sahara was like a very rich territory, and yeah, they was thinking that it will be easy to occupy it, you know. But I think everything happens in the 14th of November 1975, when like United Nations was asking Spain, it's not time for occupation in Africa, it's not time for colonization in Africa, you have to give the people of Western Sahara their independence, because it was the last colony in Africa. So Spain was like in a very complicated situation, because there was Morocco with United States support, with French support, and there was also Mauritania claiming Western Sahara. So 14th of November 1975, they signed in Madrid an agreement that just basically was saying that Spain will end it, will end the colonization occupation of Western Sahara and hand over it to Mauritania and Morocco. It was completely legal, because they didn't ask the Sahrawi people, they didn't ask the legal representative of Sahrawi people, who was the Polisario Front, our liberation movement. So they just signed a contract. Spain left the territory. They take all the Spanish people from the territory of Western Sahara, and Morocco starts a military occupation from the north, and Mauritania starts a military occupation from the south. The Moroccan occupation, I have to say, that was very aggressive against the Sahrawi people. They wanted to just completely annihilate the Sahrawi population. They was bombing the Sahrawi people with napalm and international prohibited weapons, forcing thousands of Sahrawis to leave their cities, to leave their country, to leave Western Sahara, to escape to Algeria, who supported us in that moment, and they welcomed Sahrawi refugees in the territory, and in the Algerian territory. And I think when I talk about my family about that time, because it was in 1975, you cannot imagine how hard and dramatic was it for the Sahrawi people, because they have to escape from the Moroccan occupation with old people, with kids, with moments in a very bad conditions, at the same time that they were in a war against Morocco from the north, against Mauritania from the south. It was, yeah, very, very difficult for us. Also at that time, in the beginning of 1975, Polisario Front, our liberation movement, declares that Western Sahara is an independent state called Sahrawi Republic, and that Morocco and Mauritania are occupation powers. So they don't recognize that Western Sahara is part of Morocco or part of Mauritania. They declare Western Sahara as an independent state, Sahrawi Republic, and Mauritania or Morocco or any other states will, if it comes to occupy the territory of Western Sahara, we will consider it an occupation powers. In the case of Mauritania, the war was just 1 or 2 years. Mauritania after that was forced by Polisario Front to leave the war and recognize Western Sahara as an independent state, as Sahrawi Republic, and they still recognize in Sahrawi Republic until today. But in the case of Morocco, they decide with the French and United States support to continue the occupation of Western Sahara. The Polisario Front is controlling now about the 25% of the territory of Western Sahara, and Morocco occupied this, I think, about 75% of the territory of Western Sahara. The Sahrawi people is divided between the people who is living in the occupied territory and the people who is living in the refugee camps. This is the situation now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible because what Moroccan elites have done to Western Sahara is exactly what France has been doing to Morocco and Algeria, Vietnam, and so many other countries. This shows how corrupt and criminal and dangerous these Moroccan elites are. And everyone knows really Morocco being like destination for sexual tourism for children destination. So only this can tell you what sort of elites they have. And also the fact that they have recognized Israel and many other things that they the Moroccan elites, which are very different from the Moroccan people, because the Moroccan people are victims of these elites every single day. And anyway, these Moroccan elites, they pretend to be descendants of the Prophet and so on. So they are imposters. They were imposters from the first day. So everyone can easily understand what sort of people they are. But yeah, you talked about the support that France and the United States have been providing Morocco in its colonial war, occupation war in Western Sahara. Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. And I've read the excellent book that you recommended on Western Sahara, and yeah, there were some numbers there. Like for instance, France gave so many fighter jets and tanks and all sorts of ammunition to Morocco so that they can use it in Western Sahara, and they have used it. Like you said earlier, people have been armed with napalm and all sorts of weapons. So it all came with the support of France and the support of the United States as well. So Morocco isn't like if Morocco didn't have the support of France and the United States, including at the UN level, I think, right? Because France and the US, they are permanent members of the Security Council of the UN. Did they also support Morocco at the UN level? These two countries, France and the US.
Of course, yeah, it's a very interesting question, because when we talk about the support to Morocco, because Sahrawi people was like in war with Morocco for 16 years, and Morocco couldn't win the Sahrawi people, and that was the resistance of Sahrawi people was like very, very strong, because they were defending their land, they were defending their dignity. And Morocco, without the support of United States or France or Israel or Saudi Arabia, they never, I think they, we couldn't have in this situation. I mean, it will be maybe 1 or 2 years to win Morocco from the Polisario Front, because we're talking here about that Morocco have a really strong support from very important countries like United States, France, Israel, or Saudi Arabia. It's known that Morocco is the first or the most important ally to Western in the north of Africa. So for them was really interesting to support Morocco to get a rich territory as the territory of Western Sahara, even if it's something illegal, even if United Nations has called for decolonization and independence for Western Sahara from the 60s, even if historically Western Sahara was never part of Morocco, as the International Court of the Justice says. And unfortunately, they didn't care about all this international law and about what United Nations says, or about what the people of Western Sahara wants or says. They just continues to support Morocco in that legal occupation. They support Morocco politically, they support Morocco economically, they support Morocco militarily. So yeah, and that support continues until today. So yeah, and this is very I cannot find any answer to my questions, because at the moment that you talk about human rights, at the moment that you talk about to respect democracy, to respect people everywhere, and you are like supporting an illegal occupation in Western Sahara, yeah, there is no, I think there is no explanation for this situation, yeah.
Well, maybe the explanation is a very ugly one, because it's just about doing business, very probably. Yeah. And it also joined my next question, because the European Union does have trade agreements with Morocco, in which the European Union is buying from Morocco goods and commodities that are stolen on Sahrawi land. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we have to say here that when Morocco starts to occupy Western Sahara and they start to control the big parts of Western Sahara, they start to do agreements with different countries, with the different European countries, even with the United States, with Israel or other countries, Australia and other countries, Canada even, to exploiting the natural resources of Western Sahara. And here, I think, in the last 15 years, Polisario fronts came to European Union and they start to claim in the European courts, high courts of justice, that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco. So the European Union, if they sign any kind of agreements between European Union and Morocco to exploiting resources or to do any commercial agreements or any commercial trade, they will not include Western Sahara. So yeah, I think in this case, especially in this case, we can find the great contradiction, the hypocrisy and the double standards of the European Union, because they are two rulings of the European Union High Court of Justice that prohibited the inclusion of Western Sahara in the trade agreements with Morocco. But however, until today, the European Union continues to exploit the Sahrawi resources, giving Morocco millions of euros for that. It's a clear contradiction because, as I said before, the High Court of Justice of the European Union says that that is something illegal. It's a contradiction, of course, but why the European Union do that? I think that you have to ask them. I have the same question for them because, as I told you before, they are talking about democracy, they are talking about the rights of people everywhere, they are talking about freedom, they are talking about respect, especially in Ukraine. The last time we see how they defend, how they talk about to respect the international law, how we have to work and support Ukraine against the illegal occupation of Russia. At the same time, they are doing the same with Morocco. They are supporting Morocco and they are part of the occupation of Western Sahara. Especially in this case, France and Spain have appealed all the sentence that the high courts of the European Union says in this case. But we are waiting this year to 2023 that the Court of Justice will issue the last order that doesn't accept appeals, and we hope that the European Union at the end respect it. And it's easy. You just have to understand that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco, because if we go to the international law, they are saying that Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa, and there is no status yet for Western Sahara because they still Spanish colony. It's the last colony in Africa, and you cannot do any agreements with Morocco because basically it's not part of Morocco. That what United Nations says, that was African Union says, that was even the High Court of Justice of the European Union says. So how you can still having agreements with Morocco that including Western Sahara until today, we don't know.
Again, I think it's just business, and just a few weeks ago, I mean, it's good that we are having this interview now, because just a few weeks ago, as you know, there was these revelations about the corruption of European members of parliament by Moroccan authorities. And I think there's an investigation right now going on, but I think that's the explanation. It's at the end of the day, it's just for doing business. That's what they want.
Exactly.
It's unfortunately as simple as that. You are correct when you remind everyone that it is international law that Western Sahara should be an independent entity, an independent state under the authority of the Polisario and the International Court of Justice, which is the court of the United Nations, has decided. When was it? Was it in the 70s or the 80s that it has decided that Western Sahara wasn't part of Morocco?
You mean
75 or?
Yeah, in the 75, yeah.
Yeah. So this
It
is.
was very interesting because in the 75, when Morocco starts to claim Western Sahara, they didn't ask the Polisario Front, they asked just the International Court of Justice, they asked just Morocco, and they said, please give us all the proofs that you have in papers, historical things that say that Western Sahara before the colonization was Moroccan territory. And they supposedly give them all the proofs that they have that says that Western Sahara was part of Morocco. And the International Court of Justice was like more than 9 months just studying all these kind of things, and at the end they declares that there is no relation historically before the colonization. There is no relation between the people who lives in Western Sahara with Morocco in the north or with Mauritania in the south, and they declares also that United Nations should declare the independence of Western Sahara. So they were very clear, and this is something public. I think that everyone can find it in internet.
Yeah, absolutely, and so it means that since 1975, all countries, Spain, Morocco, France, and the US, and Saudi Arabia and Israel, they have been supporting a colonial effort with all the war crimes and crimes against humanity that have been committed. So hopefully there will be some international justice someday about this issue, but more specifically about the European Union. Even the High Court, the European High Court of Justice, has also, like you said earlier, decided that Western Sahara isn't part of Morocco, and all the deals between the European Union and Morocco shouldn't include
Western Sahara.
Yeah, resources that are coming from Western Sahara. But the European Union is not abiding with this decision. So you're saying this year there should be another decision, which should be a final one?
Yes, the final one will be this year, because they was like just playing kind of game. When was the decision? France and Spain especially, they was like appeal that decision to give them time to still like in disagreements with Morocco, and they did it like in 2 times, but this time we will have the final resolution that they cannot appeal. It's like impossible to appeal. You have just to respect it. So yeah, it will be in the middle of this year. I think for this summer or before the summer we'll have the last decision, and I think it will be very hard for Morocco, because as we said before, Morocco was like working very hard from inside of the European Union, as we said, like just paying some people in the European Parliament to keep this kind of agreement, to do these kind of things, to keep like just making money from the occupation of Western Sahara. So we think that this sentence that we will have this year will be very important for us as a Sahrawi people, because they have to respect it. And it will be like kind of hard for the Moroccan occupation, because if they cannot make more money from the occupation, that means that the days of the occupation are counted. It's like maybe we are in the last because if Morocco cannot make money from the occupation in Western Sahara, they have to left Western Sahara, because at the end, what they want from that occupation is not only the territory of Western Sahara, but they also want the millions of euros and dollars that they take from and they make from the occupation. So yeah, this sentence that we will have this year will stop the big parts of the benefits that Morocco gets from the occupation.
Yeah, it's about plunder. It's about stealing resources in a shameful manner and violating the human rights of I don't know how many Sahrawis are there today inside Western Sahara.
Well, the most part of Sahrawis is living in the occupied territories. It's like almost 1 million, I think.
Yeah, so it means that they are keeping 1 million people hostage within their own country.
It's like about 1 million of Sahrawis lives in the occupied territories, but they are minority in their land in Western Sahara, because Morocco was along this like 50 years of occupation. They were bringing like Moroccan people from the north, from the Moroccan territory to Western Sahara, and Sahrawi people are now a minority in their own land. So I just want to say this.
Yeah, it's a strategy of Morocco, because
Yeah,
someday there will be a referendum.
yeah,
And actually, the United Nations has decided that there should be a referendum, and it was scheduled for taking place in 1991.
yeah.
So can you tell us what happened? Why did this referendum not take place like the UN said in 1991?
Well, we have to say here that after 60 years of war between Morocco and Polisario Front, Morocco couldn't win Polisario Front in that war. Polisario Front has liberated about 25% of the territory of Western Sahara. So in 1991, Morocco was forced to sign agreement with the Polisario Front. The agreement was presented by the United Nations and African Union to stop the war and hold a referendum where Sahrawi people can vote if they want to be part of Morocco or if they want to be an independent state. So yeah, that was the agreement, and the United Nations said at that time that the referendum will be held in a time frame of 9 months, no more than 9 months. So yeah, Morocco knew at that time that if Sahrawi people have the opportunity to vote, they of course will vote for independence, because we Sahrawis knows that we are Sahrawis from Western Sahara. We are not part of Morocco. We are not part of Algeria. We are not part of Mauritania. We are Sahrawis from Western Sahara. And of course, if we have the opportunity to vote, we will vote for the independence of Western Sahara. And we are fighting, and our struggle is to get to this independence. So yeah, as I said, the agreement was signed in 1991. United Nations says that the referendum will be done in time frame of 9 months, and it's passed now more than 30 years, and we're still waiting for the referendum. Morocco has blocked all the efforts of the United Nations mission sent to Western Sahara to organize this referendum, just because I said before, they know that referendums means independence of Western Sahara. So yeah, that is the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same strategy of any settler colonial power. They try to get as many people who are pro the colonial state, so that if one day there is some sort of referendum, they will be guaranteed to win that referendum and have some sort of legitimacy. That's what Israel is doing, and yeah, it's quite disgusting, especially coming from a country like Morocco, which should be standing against such practices. But they have their elites, which are criminal, and yeah, nothing different should be expected. So I wanted to ask you also, yeah, why do you think the conflict in Western Sahara isn't getting the attention it should be getting internationally? Is it because there's some like counter lobbying from France and the US or other countries, or how do you explain that?
Well, it's very sad to say this, but I think it's basically we have no international attention because Morocco have the right friends. When United States, when France, when Israel supports Morocco in the illegal occupation of Western Sahara, no matter what international law says, no matter Moroccan violation, repression, or occupation against Sahrawi people in Western Sahara, Morocco occupation forces can do whatever they want. Nobody gonna talk about it, and nobody gonna do anything, basically, because as I said before, Morocco have the right friends. So yeah, the world it's work like this, you know.
Yeah. It's the problem of manufacturing consent through the media, because the Western powers they own like the biggest mainstream media in the world. Although this is changing with the conflict with Russia and the rise of China and so on. But yeah, for the moment, they still get to manufacture consent and make some issues invisible, some important issues invisible, or make them look secondary, or create some doubt oh, maybe Morocco has actually the legitimacy over Western Sahara, blah, blah, blah. So they create doubt, and people, when they are in doubt, they don't know who to support. So you will not have support from those people who are like hesitating. And yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I think the answer for this question, it's like there is 2 points. If you like just check these points, you will have no doubts about this. The first one is to go to Western Sahara and talk with people, is to go to refugee camps in Algeria and try to find Sahrawi people and talk with them. You will find the families that escaped from Western Sahara. You can go even to the liberated part of Western Sahara and see the wall that divides Western Sahara, and it was built by Morocco and Israel. That is the first point, that to go and see the reality. The second point is to go to the international law. It's like we have all the states, it's like United States, we have European Union, we have all the countries in the world talking about something called the international law. So what international law say about this? What United Nations say about this case? They say that Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa. So I think there is no doubt about this. But unfortunately, yeah, as I said, Morocco have the right friends and they give voice when it's like some economic interest for them, and they silence people where it's not very interesting. But for me, I live in Spain, and for me, it's like very frustrating to see every year on the television how they talk about the Berlin Wall as something in the past, and we will never see something like the Berlin Wall. And we have in Western Sahara the longest wall in the world. Was built by Morocco, is dividing families in Western Sahara, a wall of 2,700 kilometers with more than 10 millions of miles. It's like something crazy, and people can go and can see that wall. And we still have it in Western Sahara. When they also talk about colonialism as something in the past and there is no colonialism today, no, Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa, and we're still suffering the consequences of the colonialism until today. So yeah, there is many things that, yeah, that we can see, but unfortunately they don't talk about it, they don't give it attention, just because, as I said before, Morocco have the right friends, United States, France, Israel. Yeah, and they control also the media. So yeah, everybody know that.
Yeah, they have the right friends, just like mafia criminals have the right friends.
Exactly.
They are all part of a mafia, of a cartel, and they perpetuate their crimes as long as they can by creating disinformation and finding excuses. Well, there's no excuse. The UN has said 1991, in no more than 9 months, there will be a referendum, and the Sahrawi people should decide their own fate. It's a fundamental right. And this hasn't happened. It's because some very powerful entities like France and the US have been doing everything they can. So it didn't.
To block it,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so can you tell us? About the resistance of the Sahrawi people? Because the Sahrawi people didn't have a lot of support from Algeria, but they didn't have like all the weapons that Morocco has been receiving from France, like fighter jets, tanks, or the weapons they have received from the US, or the money they have received also from these countries, and the logistical support and the training of soldiers and the tactical support and intelligence support and so on. So despite of all of this asymmetrical war between the Sahrawi people and the Moroccan invasion, the Moroccan colonial war, despite this, the Polisario Front has, like you said earlier, still gained and maintained control, regained and maintained control of 25% of the territory. So can you tell us?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think if we look at all the revolutions in the world, we find that the most important things to win any battle is not the weapons or the allies that you have or who is supporting you. I think the most important things that we can see in all the revolutions to win any battle or any revolution is resistance. And Sahrawi people, we have all the power to keep resisting until we achieve our goal to be free in an independent and free Western Sahara. When we talk about, yeah, we have supports from Algeria, we had supports from Libya in the past years, from South Africa, from almost all the countries in South America or in Africa. They support us because they know what it means to be suffering from colonization and occupation. So we have supports from that countries, but Morocco has, as we said before, the support of Israel, United States, France, and it was not easy for us to be in war against Morocco 16 years. But in the 13 years that we were waiting for the referendum that they have promised it for 9 months, and we were waiting for 30 years. I think that was a clear proof and message to the world and to the international community about the nature of the Sahrawi people. We have to understand that Sahrawi people is a very Pacific people. Along the years, we have lived in Western Sahara, I mean, before the colonization, without any problems with anyone, without any wars. As I told you before, our philosophy of life is very quiet. But unfortunately, we were forced to this situation of colonization and occupation. And of course, we will fight to defend our land, to defend our dignity, to defend our people. That is why we are in war against Morocco now. So I would like to say that we are very far from terrorism, because Morocco, it's like many times start to do some propaganda in the media saying that Polisario Front or Sahara people are terrorists, is a kind of a terrorist group or something like that. But I have to say that we are very far from terrorism. We are very far from hostilities. Everyone can see that along that 30 years, we were using pacific actions. We claim our right using culture. We claim our right using art. We claim our right using music. We claim our right using very different kinds of pacific protests in the refugee camps, or in the occupied territories of Western Sahara. We were like just trying to send a message to the world that there is in Western Sahara a Pacific people that claim their right to be an independent state, and they want their right to be in freedom and peace with all the countries in the region. But unfortunately, we were like completely ignored by the international community. And at that time, where we were like suffering really bad conditions in the refugee camps or in the occupied areas of Western Sahara, but trying along 50 years to send this message that we are like Pacific people using Pacific ways to claim our right, we were completely ignored, because the countries, the international community was like giving all the support to Morocco to keep the occupation in Western Sahara. So yeah, that's why I think we are now in war, because we get to understand that we have to be in war against the occupation to get our rights. But I have to say that our war always will be against the Moroccan regime, the Moroccan occupation forces, but never against the Moroccan people, of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, the Moroccans are victims of their own regime.
Exactly.
Victims for decades, if not a few centuries, because the regime has been collaborating with France at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, important thing when you said, yeah, of course Morocco will say Sahrawis are terrorists. Of course they will say that. The same way like the US was saying that Nelson Mandela was a terrorist, and he was their terrorist list until I think 2008, something like that. So yeah, of course they will say that. But one important thing to say is that the Sahrawis never did terrorist acts inside the Moroccan territory, right? They didn't do like guerrilla operations or terrorist attacks, bombings. Which they could have done that, or they could have tried, but they didn't. So this is an important thing to say, because their fight their fight is honorable. They are fighting with honor. This is extremely important to say. Just like the Vietnamese have been fighting with honor, just like the Algerian National Liberation Front has been fighting with honor, the Algerian National Liberation Front always said, we are not going to conduct operations inside of France. We want France to get out of Algeria. That's all we want. So the operations we will be on our territory, the Algerian territory. But they never did any operations in the French territory, in the metropolis. So yeah, that's a very important point. And I'm guessing Sahrawis inside Western Sahara, I think they are protesting. They are protesting often. What kind of actions are they doing from inside the Sahrawi territory?
Well, they start to do actions like always pacific actions, as like protest, that just protest against the Moroccan occupation. In the 70s and the 80s, it was impossible to know anything about what is happening in Western Sahara because, of course, we haven't internet at that time. There was completely prohibited for journalists or international observators or anyone to visit the occupied territories of Western Sahara. So yeah, it was impossible to know what is happening. But after that, I think in the last 15 years that we have internet, people in Western Sahara, especially Sahrawi activists, start to film with the phones what is happening there. And it's just something horrible. The situation in the occupied territories of Western Sahara is just horrible. Some journalist from South America has called it the most bigger prison in the world. Sahrawi people have no right under the Moroccan occupation, absolutely no right. They are suffering all kinds of human rights violations. Moroccan occupation forces has killed thousands of Sahrawis in prisons. They have practiced all kinds of tortures that you can imagine just because they didn't accept the Moroccan occupation. And this is not just because I'm Sahrawi and I'm talking about this. You can find like in internet, like I think thousands of reports from different associations or from different journalists that visit the territory, or even from Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International. Yeah, you can find a lot of even declarations of people who were Sahrawi people, Sahrawi activists who were in the Moroccan prisons, and you cannot imagine all the kind of things that Morocco was doing to the people in the occupied territories, and they still suffering until today. Because I have some contact with my friends there, because I have friends. I couldn't see them because I'm in Spain. I'm from the refugee camps, so I can't go to the occupied territories. Morocco will stop me and they will kick me out. But I have contact with some friends there, some Sahrawi activists, and they told me that just because you post a tweet or something on Facebook saying that Western Sahara should be free, they can take you and just give you 10 years of prison now. It's like very easy for them. So yeah, you can imagine what they are suffering in the occupied areas of Western Sahara. And of course, Western Sahara is not allowed to be visited by any journalist or anyone. If you try to visit Western Sahara, of course, they will not let you to visit Western Sahara. And we have the last week, like 2 Spanish journalists tried to visit Western Sahara, and they didn't let them to go to Western Sahara because they don't want anyone to see what they are doing there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an information blockade, which is typical of tyrannical regimes. They don't want everyone to know what's going on because it would immediately destroy their propaganda efforts by showing what is really happening. So, as a final word, Taleb, can you tell us how can people support this cause? Well, what I found very interesting in the book that you suggested, that I read, what the authors said, in their opinion, the Western Saharan conflict can end only if the international civil society gets seriously involved. Is this also your opinion? And yeah, how can people concretely help Sahrawis get their freedom back?
Well, it's simple and easy. It's just doing what you are doing. In this case, we have nothing more to do than activism and work hard to let people know about what's happening in Western Sahara. And we have to let people know that in Western Sahara, there is people that's just fighting for justice and freedom. We can see that media is not talking about these people. We can see that international community don't care about this issue. We can see that United Nations consider it, I said before, Western Sahara as the last colony in Africa, but they are doing nothing to end this colonization. So we have nothing more to do than our voices, our work, our activism, and our revolution to make justice in Western Sahara. I would like to tell you that my mom told me that when they arrived in the Algerian territory in 1975, they were thinking that international community cannot let Morocco do that. That was like just something that impossible to understand, that Moroccan forces, Moroccan military power go inside of the territory of Western Sahara and nothing happens. They were thinking, she told me, when we get to Tindouf, to Algerian refugee camps, escaping from the Moroccan occupation, we were thinking that this situation will be resolved in 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, a month, and we will be back to our cities in Western Sahara. But yeah, and unfortunately, it's past 50 years. I am the second generation that was born in the Sahrawi refugee camps, and there's still no solution. The international community didn't do anything. But yeah, we have nothing more than resistance. But I think, and I'm sure that our resistance will be the key that will open the door of freedom, because along the years, I said before, along the years, we have seen that other revolution wins with resistance. And yeah, these days we are hearing like many voices from United States, like the last years we have heard Donald Trump saying that Western Sahara should be part of Morocco. Also, this last year, we have heard Pedro Sanchez, the president of Spain, saying that Western Sahara should be an autonomy inside of the Kingdom of Morocco. But I think that the best thing that these people, the best thing that these countries can do for Western Sahara is just to let the people of Western Sahara decide their future. It's like easy and simple. They just have to let the people of Western Sahara vote. What if they want to be part of Morocco, if they want to be an autonomy of Morocco, or if they want to be an independent state. It's not really difficult, and I really can understand, because a lot of people know a lot of people say, no, it's when we talk about Western Sahara, we are talking about that is something in relation with realpolitik, and I can understand what they mean with realpolitik. I can really understand the interest between the countries, but we cannot force the Sahrawi people to accept occupation, to accept repression, to accept to live in refugee camps just because what they call realpolitik. I'm sure that my people will continue in this resistance, we will continue in this struggle, we will continue fighting until we achieve our goal to be free in an independent and free Western Sahara. And maybe some people can call us like, you are dreamers or something like that, but I think that each revolution starts with a dream, and we are revolution. Yeah, we are sons of women that built a country in the middle of the desert from nothing. We are sons of men who fight, and they still fighting with their blood for our land, for our dignity. So we have no other option than be revolution, than be resistance, because I think nothing is more painful than the occupation we're suffering now. So yeah, we will keep fighting, we will keep doing activism, we will keep doing this revolution until we get to see a free Western Sahara.